this is going to be a quick video. I'm going to try and make this real quick. It's about what to do if you don't have much time. So in theory, this should be quick because of the subject matter of what the video is about. So I think we'll just start, like, if you don't have hardly any time, like 1 minute, let's just say for argument's sakes, and just what we were doing last season, depending on how much time we had. So, and again, this is going to vary a bit. This is just for us. Your priorities may be a little bit different, but I think it's just more about, you can infer from our priorities what your priorities might be. I think in particular for us, because we want to build our team up, then we do try to prioritize things like looking at the academy trials a bit higher than a team that's, let's say, in the Masters League might prioritize it. But anyway, I think that's a bit by the by. Let's just get into what we do. We don't have hardly any time. I think typically speaking, like, to check the transfer bids, like, that's super fast. It takes like 1 second. Don't have any, done. If you have one, even if you have 1 or 2 or 3, it's quick. It's quick because you can typically, I don't want to sell him. I don't want to sell him. Maybe I want to sell him, and then there's a decision, and maybe that takes you 30 seconds or something to decide. But at the end of the day, this is a very quick thing to check, and it can be pretty impactful, particularly if there are 1 or 2 players that potentially are worth quite a bit that you are sort of wanting to sell. It's definitely worth checking this. From there, one thing that we would typically check is just if we haven't, there are questions here about how long since you last played, where you playing the matches, how's your team set up. So if you haven't been able to log in much and matches have been getting played in the background, then this unavailable players list here, you can see if any players were injured since last time or have recovered. If you can't quite remember that, real quick thing you can do is just check your squad. I'll just typically scroll down to the players that aren't currently selected and see, should any of these guys be in the team? If not, and there's nobody injured in the team, then you're done. So for me, it's like, yeah, maybe this guy should be, so there's a little bit of a decision, but if it wasn't for this guy, then I'm done. With this guy, it's like, yeah, if I don't have much time, I'm like, yeah, he probably should be in, but it's probably okay how it is, so I'm done. If it was a key player, you want to make the change. It really depends how much time you have, but basically, this can be super fast in regards to just, is somebody in here injured? No. Is somebody down here should be in the team? No. Done, basically. Just leave it at that. So it could just take 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And then obviously if you do need to change something, depends what you need to change. It takes time. Academy Trialists, there's a quick version of this that we were doing, which is just, if you can remember the previous days, what the real reveals were. But anyway, one thing you can quickly do is just organization. That's 51, that's good enough. Vision is a striker, 26, that's good enough. Movement, DC doesn't really matter. Movement, DC doesn't really matter. Determination, 49, that's good enough. Aerial ability, 26, it's a bit low. So maybe we care about moving this guy, maybe we don't, but look at this, probably we don't. We're happy on the whole, but maybe. So one thing you can do if you think you're just totally happy with all of them, just leave it, you're done. If you have a bit of time, because that's the 10-second version, done. The longer version, if you've got a bit more time, is to say, well, maybe we're not entirely happy with this guy. So one thing you can do is you can just scroll down, find ones that have an ARA over 30. That was our benchmark, and just check if any happen to be like really obviously awesome. And maybe not. They're not obviously awesome. That's the thing. So you're done. Now, if it so happens that one of these was like, let's say this was MC and the passing was viewed and it was 1, and you're like, well, we definitely don't want this guy. So then you can just go through the ones that are over 30 and just pick whatever happened to be the best one. And you don't have to dwell on too much. This guy, look, whatever. Him, he's done. He's in. Done. So the key thing is, if you definitely don't want him, just get him in, just get anyone else in instead that maybe you do want. And that can be fast to do it that way. If you don't have time, if you've got like 8 players here and over 30, don't have time, just change it to 35. Change it to 40. Change it to a number where you're just saying, well, let's just look at the highest one. 43. Yeah, okay, whatever. Good enough. Done. Like, you can do it very fast. You don't have to check through everybody if you don't have time. It's just important if you got players here that you definitely aren't going to make the cut. They definitely aren't because of a reveal. Just get someone else in that could. So that's the quick version of that. the training is an interesting one because of the nature of how it works. Like, you don't have to check that every day, but if you do want to not make sure you check it at least once every 7 days and do it. So if you don't have much time and you can't quite remember when you did it last, what you can do, just go to training and you're like, okay, I still got 4 days or whatever sorted out, done. Or, I've got a bit of time, let's pick some and just start from the ones that are like the ones that are happening soonest. Just do a few, just say, especially if, let's say for argument's sakes, like we were in a position where we didn't have much time and it was getting down to 1 or 2 days left, and we're like, it's a bit risky, maybe we won't get to check this in the next 2 days or 3 days. Let's just get the 5s done. So to buy some one more day in time before we have to check it again. So, but in this particular case, still 4 days. We know we'll probably be able to log in, check this in the next 4 days. Done. So, that's the quick version of that. And you can just we just go through the menu system, to be honest. So it's just like transfer bids. There's a 10 to 30 second version of that we just did. Academy trialists, there's like a 1 minute version of that we just did. Training, there's like somewhere between a 5 second and a 2 minute, whatever it is, depending on how many days you have to do. But there's basically a 5 second version where you just go and you check and you just say, right, I've got time, done. And then outside of that, you can just make sure when you go to your senior squad. In your youth squad, you don't really have to bother, done. As long as you got your team set up properly to begin with. There's a bit of a separate thing for that which we can cover, but it's like when you have your team set up like this, when all of your substitutes can only play one position, then they'll only sub on for that one position. So if we know that we're not going to be playing youth matches, for example, like we know that Moreno will never get subbed on. He'll only get subbed on if we do the change and we're in the match and we're going to, otherwise he shouldn't be on the bench if we're never going to play them. It should be a different player. What player should that be? Well, only a player that plays in a position that's on the pitch, basically. So not AMR. We already got a DMC on the bench, so we probably don't need that. We obviously already got a defender, so I would say the best position would be another central defender, probably. And then they'll also go by order. So, for example, if we said, all right, let's put another central defender on the bench, then what would happen if a central defender gets subbed on? It's going to be the one that's the highest sub place. It'll be him, but we'd actually want it to probably have been the other guy. So we'd want to do that basically, and then he would be on first. That's pretty straightforward. In the case of the senior team, however, if you're not playing, it's a bit more complicated because when they can play more than one position, basically what's going to happen is this guy, if we need an MR or an MC, this guy would get subbed on first. So why is that interesting? Well, let's just say, for argument's sake, a central defender is going to come on. It's going to be this guy. We don't want this guy to play central defender because he's only got 45 tackling. We want the other guy to play central defender. And actually, if we get a player in striker, we want this guy to play striker. So actually, basically, the order should be like this if we're not going to play the matches. So the order here matters a bit. You just get your team set up. Just bear that in mind. And also just bear in mind that if you're not going to play the matches, it's just completely pointless having like a player on the bench that plays a position that isn't in your team, if that's the only position they play, like it was in the case for the youth team. So, but yeah, on the whole, once you get your youth team set up properly, because there isn't injuries or suspensions, you never have to check it again, potentially, until you're going to play again properly and start playing the matches. For the senior team, you do get the injuries and suspensions, so you just want to check it. And there was that fast version that potentially just takes a short amount of time to quickly check it, and maybe up to a minute to sort it out. And then from there, you've got the stuff that's more time consuming. You've got the auctions and the scouted players. Now, I'd say there is a fast version of this where for us, for example, we need a wide midfielder, maybe, but the real squad need at the moment is a central midfielder. But let's just say, for argument's sakes, it was there are a couple like central midfielder and central defender that there's going to, well, let's just go with central midfielder because it is the most extreme example time consumption wise. We can do it like, let's say we needed an ML and an MC for argument's sake. They were the two main squad priorities. So what we can do is go to scouted players and we sort by position and we just go down to ML. Right, there's only 3. So let's just check these 3. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever. Happy, happy, not happy, as the case may be. Maybe, just trying to look realistically, you're not going to get that guy because he's too old, blah, blah, blah. Realistically, probably not going to get this guy compared to what we've got. He's just not good enough. We just can see that straight away, but to be specific, why finishing and tackling are both low, which means he's not really ideal to be an attacking wide midfielder, and he's not ideal to be a defensive one. And also his passing isn't quite up to grade. And then this guy is like, well, okay, maybe he's fast, his passing is better. Maybe this guy is an option, quite frankly, that we could actually buy. We'll worry about that after. But and then you go into the MCs and you just flick through them. So basically, yeah, there's a whole bunch of MCs because it's probably the position that you get the most along with DC. You check them all, whatever. Yeah, that's going to take time. You obviously may be able to just say, yeah, but we're also not interested in over a certain age, so you just don't even bother checking. We're not interested in the 30-year-old, let's just skip. Not interested, whatever. At the end of the day, yes, obviously that's still going to take time. If you're going to look at it more properly, it's still going to take you a minute or whatever. But to check all of the players on this list might take you 4 minutes. So it has, reduced the time. Or maybe what you want to check is going to take 2 minutes, and to check everything it'll take 4 minutes or whatever. But you've still saved quite a bit of time by saying, there's only certain positions I'm interested in here, let's just not check the rest. Now obviously if you want to play optimally, it's still generally worth checking all those other positions, because it's like, when we were looking for an AMC, for example, there's just as much chance we're going to find our perfect AMC that doesn't play AMC, that plays some other position, and we end up adding AMC. So if you want to play optimally, you definitely want to check all the players and keep that in mind. But when you don't have time, you don't have time. So there's a very fast version of this. Same deal with the auctions. Especially if you have limited buying power, what you can do is you can just say, right, we can only spend up to about 8 million because that's all we can afford. So let's just start from here. And then also we're only looking for an MC and an ML or whatever it is. So here's one, check him. Here's one, check him. Here's one, check him. And we're done. So there's very fast versions of these things. And now if you only have literally 1 minute, you need to prioritize what of these things are the most important things for you. So for us, it wasn't the auctions of the scouter players. For us, if we only have 1 minute, the most important thing to check was the transfer bids and the trialists. That was for us. Now, for another team, it may be the scouter players or the auctions. It's part of that. And if you have 2 minutes, then maybe you can check a bit more. So you just got to play it a bit, wing it a bit. But I think, on the whole, though, you can do quite a bit off of that list in 5 minutes. Potentially all of it. Potentially everything that we just discussed. All of the versions of the quick quick the transfer bids, check your training options, the trialists, and do all of that. Those quick versions of everything you can do in under 5 minutes consistently. And we were doing that. Consistently. So if you have a bit more time, let's say you have 10 minutes. So you've done the quick versions. Maybe you want to do a longer version of some of those things. Maybe you want to play a match. So what we were doing when we were playing a match, sometimes what we'd do is we'd start the match and just watch the first little bit and make sure that there's nothing obviously sort of wrong, so to speak. Like the other team isn't just got all the possession and having all the shots. Like, we're in the match and we're probably looking like we're going to have more shots than them, have better shots than them. Like, just trying to get a gut feel for how the initial stages of the matches unfold, and that we're happy with that. And then what we'd do is we'd leave the match, we'd go and check all this other stuff for 5 minutes, and then we would come back and we would play the second half, or whatever's left of the match. And then maybe we don't get to finish the match. We have to leave before the end, and we just play whatever we had time to play. So, there's like that 10 minute. If you've got 10 minutes, what you can do is just request the match straight away. Probably you want to double check that you're before you do that. You want to just go to your senior squad and you want to do this quick check to make sure your team is set up. Do that first, then start the match, then go and do the other stuff, and then connect and play the end of the match. So. And then once you've got beyond 15 minutes, then I don't know if this video guide really applies too much anymore, quite frankly. You just do whatever you want. Pretty much at that point, you don't really need these fast versions of things. You can just sort of, once you've got half an hour, you can sort of just start doing everything properly. It's not what this guide is about. This guide is about really, if you just have tiny amount of time, potentially, So yeah, awesome. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next video.